The Cinnamon Club's been a story of many lucky chances and chance encounters and lucky breaks. The first I had when I had a restaurant PR company, Jory White came and joined me, and I was then focusing entirely on Indian food and looking at what Indian restaurants are doing. And then Jory bought a clutch of Michelin-starred French clients and Italian places, and we started to see that the Indian restaurant clients we had weren't really doing the same level of special experiences that the French or other places did. And we started to have a conversation then about what would happen if somebody built an Indian restaurant that had the highest of European standards, that did perform on the levels of beautiful presentation, of wonderful wines, of a great experience, and wonderful service. I didn't know then, when we were having that conversation, that it would end up being me that did it. I went forward and I started work on the Cinnamon Club, and Hardeep mentioned my very close friend, Percy Marchant, who, when he married the lovely and gorgeous Dina, hired the Rajvilas in Jaipur. And I went to the wedding, and on the first night there was a poolside barbecue, and Percy said to me, "Have you found a chef for that restaurant you want to do yet?" And I said, "No." He said, "You should go and talk to this guy. I've been harassing him for 3 days, and he's really coming up with the goods, and he's really impressing me." And I know Percy, he doesn't get impressed very easily. And so I talked to Vivek, and I was sort of getting the vision that he was on my side, and he had that same kind of thought. And then the next morning I thought, well, before I go any further, let me just go and see the menu that he's got for breakfast in his place. And it had a ham and egg dosa. And I thought, I don't need to sell this to him, he already gets it. And we spent the next 4 days, and Percy, Dina, please don't mind, but we skipped out of many of your wedding parties because Vivek and I talked food. And he had been approached by other restaurants in London, and he thought, what's the point of me coming all the way to London to do what I was already doing in India? And he was a high flyer, he was 28, he was head chef of the top hotel in India. But we talked, and eventually I found my man, and he found his man. And on the final day, Percy had one more coach tour, and I was a bit late, and I got on it, and I ran on, and somebody said, "Well, what are you doing, pinching the chef from there?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Is he coming?" I said, "Yes." And everyone cheered. And a lawyer from Clifford Chance, Adrian, said, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Do you know that makes your trip tax deductible?" So I was doubly happy. We had many more chance encounters, many more lucky things happened. One of which was that this was a very, very difficult building to turn from a Westminster library into the dream Indian restaurant that firstly I and then Vivek and I wanted to create. And many things went wrong, many things. And then one day I happened to be sitting in a dinner party, and I sat next to Emma Jones, who's sitting over here. And she was saying to me, "What are you doing with your life these days?" And I said, "I'm trying to build this restaurant, and it's going horribly wrong, and I run out of money, and my investors are really mad at me. They're all sitting over there." And she said, "Oh my God, I was told today that the BBC are looking for someone to make a program about following them as they were building this restaurant." And you've been watching it. There I am there. And so we then regrouped, we found more people. I then convinced the landlord of this building, the person who bought this building, was a guy called John Rosefield. And he had 300 people from Conran, the Ivy, Kensington Place, all wanting to turn this into their dream restaurant. And I was a nobody in the business then, so the agents didn't want to talk to me. So I wrote to him, he didn't reply to my letters, he didn't return my fax, he didn't return my calls. And then one day I caught him, at 8:30 in the morning. I said, "Mr. Rosefield, this is Iqbal Wahab." And he said, "Oh God, you. Why don't you get it? I don't want to talk to you. I have no interest in your building. I've got no way that I'm going to actually talk to you about what you have to do. So please stop wasting my time." So I said, "But Mr. Rosefield, I'm going to make your building famous. And a property man is a property man." And so he thought, "How?" So I said, "Give me 10 minutes of your time, And I'll tell you. So he very grumpily agreed and said, Tuesday, 10 o'clock, don't be late. So Tuesday, 10 o'clock, I turned up, and I said, Mr. Rosefield, I can't tell you everything I have to tell you about this brilliant restaurant project of mine in 10 minutes. I need 30 minutes. And he was a grumpy old man. He's not here, is he? No. He was smoking a big cigar. You could do it in those days. And he said, don't waste your 10 minutes talking about 30 minutes. You've now got 9 minutes. And so I rushed through what I was going to say, and by the end of my 10th minute, I said, and by the way, I've got the head chef of the Rajvilas, who's going to come and join my thing. And for the first time, he actually listened. So he picked up the phone to his secretary and said, hold my calls, I'm going to be here for a little while. And he turned to me and he said, I've just come back from the Rajvilas, and that's the best holiday I've ever had, that's the most magnificent hotel I've ever been to, and the most amazing food I've ever eaten. Have you really got that, chef? And I said, yes. And so he looked at me and he said, you know, you got some guts hassling me all this time. I'm going to do something I really shouldn't do, and my shareholders won't be very happy, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut out the whole shortlisting process, and you and I will do a deal, right here, right now. And he said, can you exchange and complete within 7 days? And I said, absolutely. I didn't know what exchange and complete meant. And then he said, and I'm presuming, Iqbal, you've got the money to do all of this. And then Colin Firth would get nowhere near what happened next. I said, Mr. Rosefield, do you think that after all this time, after all this effort I put into telling you and converting you to the idea of what I'm going to do with the cinema club and your property, that you want to know how much money I've got to do this? Do you think that I've actually understood the financial implications of what I'm proposing to you? And he said, ooh, and the relationship between a landlord and a tenant, surely it's better than this. If you need me to go and get a bank statement and show you that I've got the money, I'll do that, if that's what you really need. And he said, no, that's fine. It really was fine because I had no money. I went and got the money, and thanks to the investors, we found it, we built it, and fast track forward, 10 years on, here we are, with the highest grossing, most successful Indian restaurant in the world. We have created in Vivek Singh the leading Indian chef of his generation. We should be very proud of that. We should be very proud of Vivek. He's been the glue that's held it together all this time. I've since moved on, but I'm very happy and proud to be here. Thanks to the investors, thanks to the customers, thanks to the team, but most importantly, can I please introduce you to the person who's made it all happen, Vivek Singh.